So about a week ago, we received our Surface Pro 9. Now we've already completed the review of this model and it is in the description down below just in case you missed it. But tonight, what we want to do is compare this year's Surface Pro 9 against last year's Surface Pro 8. Now there has been a very slight redesign of the Surface Pro 9. So tonight we're going to cover all the differences between the two. Then we're going to look at the performances between the two. And then lastly, we're going to talk about whether it's worthwhile spending the extra money you need to buy this expensive Surface Pro 9, or whether you should save a few pounds and buy a discounted Surface Pro 8. Now to make this as fair as possible, we've bought both of these in the i5 16GB configurations with 256GB of SSD. But obviously the Surface Pro 9 is a 12th gen CPU and the Surface Pro 8 is an 11th gen CPU. So the first thing you'll probably notice the difference between these two is the colours. The original Surface Pros and Surface Pro 8 in particular only came in two colours, the platinum and the black. Now I've got the platinum here with the black type cover. I've had this for quite a while now, it still looks pristine and the actual platinum has held up really well for my time using this machine and I use this a lot. Now this year with the Surface Pro 9, Microsoft have jazzed them up a little bit and we've got some new colour options. We've got the sapphire blue, which I've chosen here. There's also the forest green, which looks great as well. And if you do still like the original colours, there is the platinum and the black still available too. And also to complement the Surface colours, we've also got updated colours for the type cover. We have the sapphire blue and the forest green, as well as the original platinum, black and the poppy red. But I also want to mention that even though this has been redesigned, the type covers are still interchangeable between the Surface Pro 9 and the Surface Pro 8 and also the Surface Pro X. And they both still use the Slim Pen 2. And I've got one in each of these machines. They're exactly the same pen that they're supplying this year as you got last year, so there's no change in the pen technology. Now I'm going to look around the devices in a second, but before I do that, I just want to mention quickly, because I'm going to rip these off in a sec, the new Surface Pro type cover, as well as being compatible, they are exactly the same layout as last year's. And the good thing about this is, if you're used to last year's or you have last year's Surface Pro 8 type cover, you don't need to buy it again this year unless you really do want the colour to match your Surface Pro like I wanted here. So I'm going to quickly rip off the type covers and pens and we'll look around the actual tablets themselves. Now first I want to quickly talk about size and weight, because despite being a redesign they are very, very similar. The actual Surface Pro 9 is 1mm wider than the Surface Pro 8. It's actually so minor I don't think I'll even be able to show that on the camera. Every other dimension is exactly the same thickness, same height, it's just 1mm wider. And with regards to weight, you never tell the difference. The Surface Pro 9 is just 12 grams lighter. I suppose it's nice they've made a bit of a reduction there, but it hardly seems worth it. But some of the other changes are more significant. Now, firstly, the actual button layout, and this is a big improvement on the Surface Pro 9. On the very left of the Surface Pro 9, we have the power button, followed by the volume rocker. On the Surface Pro 8, on the left-hand side, we've got the volume rocker, and on the right-hand side, we've got the power button. And the reason why I've always disliked this is sometimes when you're picking up the actual Surface Pro 8 to either use it as a tablet or if you're just picking it up to use it, you'll accidentally hit the power button and turn your device off. And it can be really frustrating. And I even did it in one of my previous videos when I was showing off the device. Now the next change is the Thunderbolt 4 ports. These have both got two Thunderbolt 4 ports, but the Surface Pro 9 has its two Thunderbolt 4 ports on the left-hand side, and the Surface Pro 8 has the two Thunderbolt 4 ports on the right-hand side. Now there's no difference in functionality, but the actual placement may just make a difference in where you put your cables around the side of the device. I would have much preferred if they would have put one Thunderbolt on each side of the device so you could spread things out. The next difference is the Surface Connect port. On the Surface Pro 8, the Surface Connector port is lower, and on the Surface Pro 9, the Surface Connect port is much higher. Now again, this doesn't really make a difference to the functionality of the devices, but I do prefer the Surface Connect port being lower and having the cable dangling out lower when you've plugged it in to charge. Now the last difference with the ports is the Surface Pro 9 now no longer has that headphone jack. If we look on the side here, you can see the Surface Pro 8 has a headphone jack, and personally I do still find that useful. Now I did bring this up in the Surface Pro 9 review, mentioning that the Surface Pro 9 did not have that headphone jack, and I was a bit disappointed. And I did get a few comments saying, come on, you need to move on with the times, we don't need headphone jacks anymore. And I'm going to answer that by saying, well, if you're only using this device as a media consumption device, not having a headphone jack is fine. You can use your sort of wireless Bluetooth headphones, and they are fine for media consumption. But if you are working with audio, if you're recording audio, having that headphone jack is invaluable. Now, yes, you can get around that with dongles, but considering these are the same size devices, there was probably no reason for them to have to remove that headphone jack. I don't see why they had to take it away from us. There are a couple of other very slight changes to the actual design of these models. Firstly, on the Surface Pro 8, the ventilation holes are much more visible all the way around the laptop. On the Surface Pro 9, we have the same seam that goes around, but you cannot see the vents like you can on the 8. And on the Surface Pro 8, you have the plastic bar along the top for the wireless signal, whereas the Surface Pro 9, they've done away with that. You've got a much nicer, complete seam all around the device. So I'm not sure where they've hidden the wireless antennas now, but it does look much better to the eye than the Pro 8. And the last external change is the SSD on both these machines. Now, they both do still use the same 30mm SSD bays, but on the Surface Pro 8, it's on the left-hand side here from the back, and you need a SIM tool to pop in here to remove the hatch. Now, on the Surface Pro 9, they've moved it over to the right, and you've just literally got a little button you press, and it's held in by magnets, and it's very incredibly easy to lift away that trapdoor now to get to the 30mm SSD. Which leads me to one other point I want to make about upgradability or repairability. Microsoft has made improvements to the repairability of the Surface Pro 9 over previous Surfaces, and I believe iFixit did a teardown on this model and give it a much higher score than the Surfaces ever normally get. So if that's something that you're interested in, the Surface Pro 9 does have advantages there. So now we've looked around both of these devices, let's talk about the actual usability. And first we'll start with the screens. Now they've both got the same PixelSense 13-inch displays, 120 Hz. They also both have the option now to have the refresh rate auto-adjust itself to save a bit of power. That's been a new update on the Surface Pro 8 via firmware, and the Surface Pro 9 came with that out of the gate. Now we calibrated both of these screens, and the actual Surface Pro 8 was very slightly more colour accurate, whereas the Surface Pro 9 was just slightly brighter than the Surface Pro 8. But again, this could definitely be down to panel differences. It was so minor. But with these Surface Pros, I absolutely love the screens. It is a real selling point of these devices. I love the fact they get bright, the pixel density, and how fluid they are. They are just great machines to work with, especially with this aspect ratio for drawing and for work. Now, with regards to speakers, they've both got 2-watt stereo speakers. They're both front-facing. You can probably just about see the cutouts either side of the top of the screen. I'm going to put them head-to-head, and they sound like this. Speaker test on the Surface Pro 8 versus Surface Pro 9. We're at 50% volume. We're going to start with the Pro 8. Pro 9. Now 80%. So there we go. Speakers do sound pretty similar between the two. It feels like the Surface Pro 8 has got less EQ on there, so it seems to be a little bit more natural, whereas with the Surface Pro 9, I think they've added a few sort of, bit of equalizer there, and I don't know, it doesn't sound quite as good in my opinion. And as we move up to the actual webcams, they're both front-facing 1080p webcams, and they both have IR Windows Hello facial recognition for logging you in, which works incredibly fast and fluidly. And the webcams look and sound like this. And this is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the Microsoft Surface Pro 8. And this is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the new Surface Pro 9 Intel Edition. And they've both got 10 megapixel rear cameras. We're going to take some photos and videos to put them side by side for you so you can see if there's any difference between these two. And as usual, I'd love to know your thoughts on these cameras. Put them in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of these two cameras. So now that we've looked all around these devices, let's look at the performance. Now, firstly, we're going to look at the CPU performance, because obviously that's the biggest difference with the Surface Pro 9 over the Surface Pro 8. We've got DDR5 memory, and we've got the new 12th gen Intel CPUs with a lot more core count. When we run the short Geekbench 5 benchmark, not only is the single core score quite a nice boost over the Surface Pro 8, but the multi-core score gets well over 30% more in performance in the CPU over the Surface Pro 8. It's really quite significant. And when we move to the longer 10-minute test of Cinebench R23, which really torches these CPUs, the Surface Pro 9 scores 7,200 points, and the actual Surface Pro 8 scores 5,600 points, so a good 30% lead on the Surface Pro 9. And interestingly, as I watched both these tests running, the Surface Pro 9 boosts instantly to about 50 watts, then throttles back for the remainder of the test. And it's always about 5 watts lower than the Surface Pro 8. And despite being lower in wattages and clock speeds, because of its higher core count, it outscores the Surface Pro 8. So it shows you that it is more efficient on the CPU side. So overall, the CPU is an easy win for the Surface Pro 9 and a good reason to upgrade if you need CPU-heavy software. But as we move to the GPU, despite these both using the Intel Iris graphics that really are quite old now, the Surface Pro 8 consistently beats the Surface Pro 9. Now admittedly, it's not by a lot, but in every test and games benchmark that we ran on the Surface Pro 8 and 9, the Surface Pro 8 won. But I would like to add that neither of these two machines are graphics powerhouses. They're only ever going to be any good for light graphics use, maybe a bit of Photoshop, very light rendering or 3D work, and very light gaming. Now we are going to be testing both of these with an eGPU, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to see the eGPU test between both of these machines. I've got an eGPU and a bunch of graphics cards that we're going to do a thorough test on them. But as the machines themselves go, the Surface Pro 8 is easily the winner in the graphics department. And as we move to the actual SSDs on these machines, now as I mentioned, both of these machines have upgradable SSDs, but we did test the stock 256GB SSDs in each of these machines. Now surprisingly, the read speeds are both about just over 3,000 megabytes per second, which is Gen sort of 3 speed, very average. But the write speed was double the actual Surface Pro 8 in a lot of the tests that we ran on these. So definitely a nice win there on the SSD speeds with the Surface Pro 9. Moving to performance on the battery, and both of these machines perform very well on battery performance. When you put them to the best performance profile within Windows, they both score nigh on what they would do in mains. And that's one of the things I love about these low voltage processors. They are great on battery. Now, unfortunately, battery life with these machines isn't amazing when you compare it to Ryzen or obviously Apple Silicon. Both of these machines scored just over 7 hours on our usual battery test of watching YouTube streaming over Wi-Fi at 200 nits of brightness. And that's quite impressive for the Surface Pro 9 because it has a very slightly smaller battery than the Surface Pro 8. And with regards to the actual power adapter, they've both got the same 45 watt Surface Pro power adapter, which has got the usual magnetic charger that clips into the Surface Connect port and has the onboard USB. So it's a really nice compact charger. I do love these about the Surface Pros, and they're using exactly the same adapter. So if you've got any in your drawer from your previous Surface Pros, they will all work. And of course, we've got Thunderbolt 4 on both these machines. So if you want, you can use a power bank, a USB-C PSU, or even a monitor or dock to power both of these machines. So that leads me through to the conclusion. And I have to be honest, I am a big Surface Pro fan. I've owned every Surface Pro device right way through from 1 right up to the 9, and I do love Surface Pros. They're such versatile devices that are great as laptops, for note-taking, for drawing, even for tablet use. And I know Windows isn't great for tablet, but the fact that you can use them with a tablet is fantastic, as well as it actually has a laptop. And the kickstands are amazing. I don't understand why nobody else can do a good job copying these Surface Pros. But when I'm comparing these two devices, the Surface Pro 9 has got some lovely refinements over the Surface Pro 8. And if you're coming to the table and you haven't got either of these devices, then it's going to be quite a difficult decision, because the Surface Pro 8 will be cheaper because obviously they're reducing them because the Surface Pro 9 is now out. But the Surface Pro 9 pricing, if you're buying it at full retail price, is eye-watering, especially when you add in the pricing for the dock and the pen, which you pretty much need to get a decent package with these devices. All of a sudden your $1,099 Surface Pro 9 is instantly about $1,400 because you've added the dock and the pen. And at that price point, I cannot see it as a worthwhile investment when you could get the Surface Pro 8 on a sale for probably $800-900 for a similar sort of spec. Now, as obviously there's deals coming on, and in the future deals coming on, then I would definitely pick up the Surface Pro 9 if it was a similar price to the Surface Pro 8. The refinements are great. You've obviously the better button placement. I love the new colours. I love the new processors. They are great. But I just cannot justify that when it's so much more expensive than the Pro 8. So at the moment, as of the time of me recording this video, if you're out looking for one of these two devices, I would recommend you save yourself a few $100s, pick up the Surface Pro 8. And it's still such a solid device. 11th gen is still no slouch, and you'll do most of the jobs that you're going to need to do in day-to-day life on the Surface Pro 8. Well, that's my thoughts on these two devices. As always, I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you vote with your heart or do you vote with your wallet? Pop the comments down below and I will respond back to you. And as always, thank you for watching.